Hi, and in this video we're going to be looking at equivalent fractions and also going to be looking at simplest form. By way of an example, we can see that a half can be rewritten as another fraction as 2 over 4, or 2 quarters. Look at the amount of shaded area. There's enough shaded area over here, exactly the same shaded area over here. It can also be rewritten as 3/6, because even though those 3 little quadrants are colored in, it is still half of the whole. Likewise with 4/8. 4/8 is 4 little quadrants. Out of 8, it is still only half of the shape that is colored in, as it is with 3/6, as it is with 2 quarters, as it is with a half. So the equivalent fractions of a half are 2 quarters, 3/6, or 4/8. And alternatively, we could say that an equivalent fraction of 3/6 could in fact be 2 quarters, it could be a half, it could in fact also be 4/8, and it can be very many others as well. In this example, I want to find an equivalent fraction of 3 quarters. So what is an equivalent fraction of 3 quarters? Well, there's a couple of things I can do here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply it by 2. So I'm going to say multiply by 2 numerator and multiplied by 2 in the denominator. So 3 multiplied by 2 is going to give me 6. And 4 multiplied by 2 is going to give me 8. So I can say, therefore, that 6/8 is an equivalent fraction of 3 quarters. Alright, here is the fraction 4/5. I want you to find me an equivalent fraction, the closest equivalent fraction to 4/5 that you can. Show me your workings as well. Put the video on pause and come back when you're ready. Alright, well, the easiest thing for me to do is to actually just multiply it by 2. Okay, so I'm going to multiply the numerator by 2, and I'm also going to multiply the denominator by 2. So 4 multiplied by 2 gives me 8, and 5 multiplied by 2 is going to give me 10. So therefore, I have an equivalent fraction of 8/10 is equivalent to 4/5. I can keep going if I wanted to, find another equivalent fraction. I can actually just multiply it by 2 again. So 8 multiplied by 2 gives me 8 2s are 16. And I'm going to multiply 10 by 2, and that's going to give me 20. So 16 over 20 is also an equivalent fraction of 8/10, and it's also an equivalent fraction of 4/5. And we can just keep on going and going and going. Well, here I want to look at something a little different. I've told you that 1/3 is an equivalent fraction of 4/12. So 4/12 is an equivalent fraction of a third. How would you actually work out what I've multiplied my numerator and my denominator by to arrive at 4/12? Well, that's quite simple actually, because all we need to do is we need to say to ourselves 1 multiplied by something must give me 4. So 1 times 4 gives me 4. And what I do to my numerator, I need to do to my denominator. So I'll go 3 times 4 equals 12. Okay, so I've actually found out what I've actually multiplied 1/3 by to arrive at 4/12. In this example, I've actually gone the other way. I've actually given you quite a big fraction, and I've given you a smaller fraction over here. But this big fraction is equivalent to this smaller fraction. So what did I do with the 9 to arrive at 3? Well, quite simply, I did a division sum. Okay, so I divided by something. So 9 divided by something is going to give me 3. So I am going to, because I know my times tables, know that it's 3. So 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. Therefore, what I do to my numerator must do to my denominator. So 12 divided by 3 Does that give me 4? Yes, it does. Therefore, 3/4 is an equivalent fraction to 9/12. Alrighty. Alright, so what I have here is I have a whole lot of equivalent fractions. So this is simply what we call equivalent fractions. 1/3 is the same as 2/6, is the same as 4/12, is the same as 8/24. Okay, they are all equivalent fractions. And why is that? Well, what I've multiplied my denominator by, I've multiplied my numerator by for all of them. And so 1/3 is exactly the same or equivalent fraction as 8/24. So that's what we call equivalent fractions. Simplest form, on the other hand, is taking a fraction that is actually quite big and seeing if we can actually break it down into something smaller. Alright, so what we've done previously is we've multiplied by 2, so we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to say, well, now we need to actually divide by 2 because we're going the other way. We're coming this way now. Okay, so 8 divided by 2, that will give me 4. And 24 divided by 2 is going to give me 12. And we can keep going. We're going to get rid of this multiplication sum over there now. So we'll get rid of that guy. And I'm going to get rid of that one over there because we're going to work a little bit quicker. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 2 over there and also divide by 2, because what I do to my numerator I need to do to my denominator. So 12 divided by 2 is going to give me 6, and 4 divided by 2 is going to give me 2. And then I'm going to divide my numerator again. So 2 divided by 2, and that gives me 1. And 6 divided by 2 is going to give me 3. So I end up with the following. I end up with 8/24 as a big fraction that can be simplified down to 4/12, and that can be further simplified down to 2/6, and I end up, after my final simplification, of a fraction of 1/3. So 8/24 has been simplified down to 1/3. Alright, so before we finish this video, I want you to simplify this particular fraction. Is 8/32. It definitely can be simplified because both numerator and denominator are even numbers, so it can definitely be divided by 2. See how far you can simplify it. Put the video on pause and come back when you're ready, see if you got it right. Alright, well, how did we go? Well, the rule is what you do to the numerator, you must do to the denominator. That's definitely with regards to simplifying these fractions. So I'm going to divide 8 by 2 because I know it's an even number. So 8 divided by 2, that'll give me 4. And what is 32 divided by 2? So 32 divided by 2 is in fact 16. Alrighty. I'm looking at these two numbers now and I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what, they are still even numbers and I can actually simplify them even further. So 4 divided by 2 is going to give me 2. Okay, 16 divided by 2 is going to give me 8. Alright, once again, even. So I can definitely divide by 2 once again. So I'm going to do that. So 2 divided by 2, that gives me 1. And what is 8 divided by 2? Well, that gives me 4. So what I now have is I have this particular fraction of 8/32 simplified down to end up at 1/4. And 1/4 is the simplest form of 8/32. Alright, so that is what we call simplest form. Alright, but what about these two fractions, 7/21 and 9/15? What are we actually going to do with those particular fractions to reduce them to their simplest form? Well, 7/21 obviously is not an even number, but 7 and 21 are multiples of 7. So what we can do is we can actually, in fact, divide 7 by 7 and 21 by 7 as well. So what is 7 divided by 7 is gives us 1, and 21 divided by 7 gives us 3. So we now have 7 over 21 reduced to its simplest form of 1/3. Right, we'll give this one a go. 9 over 15. See if you can reduce that to its simplest form. Remember, they're not even numbers, so what multiple goes into both 9 and 15? Put the video on pause, come back when you're ready. Alright, well I know that 9 and 15 are both multiples of 3, so I'm actually going to divide each side by 3. So 9 divided by 3, that gives me 3. And what is 15 divided by 3? Well, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 gives me 5. So 9 over 15 reduced to its simplest form is 3 over 5. And that's all there is really to equivalent fractions and reducing fractions to their simplest form.